I'm out at an awesome site right now, and thanks to the American Battlefield Trust, this site exists today. It's the slaughter pen farm where a lot of fighting took place. And it was going to be developed at one point in time into something else, but was saved by the Battlefield Trust. I'm out at a site that was saved by the American Battlefield Trust Association. Now, this is a very significant site, and at one point in time there was talks of destroying this site and building other things on top of it. And thanks to the association, the site was preserved. Now, why is this place important? So out across these fields here, General Franklin had 65,000 soldiers spread out for the initial attack on what was supposed to be the main portion of the fight, going towards Prospect Hill and General Jackson. This attack itself failed, however, and the reason why is because General Franklin only put in 8,000 men initially with General George Gordon Meade. At the time, General Meade was not in a high-ranking position like he was during the Battle of Gettysburg. In December of 1862, this location was staging ground for the initial attack on Prospect Hill. General Franklin had brought 65,000 soldiers out here, and the initial attack was supposed to happen just over my shoulder here, where Prospect Hill is kind of in this direction. Now, he gets the soldiers over here and he issues out orders. General Meade receives his orders to attack. Somehow, things get mixed up. Franklin believes that it's some sort of a diversion plan in the orders that he receives. So he sends Meade in for the attack. Meade finds success. His 8,000 soldiers actually find a place at Prospect Hill where they can attack and break through the lines for a short period of time. From this position, they're over in that direction over there, just past the railroad tracks, where they find that break. And there's a jetted out line of trees that actually screens the Union Army advance and creates that opportunity. But it's very short-lived, because after this happens, the Confederates plug in the hole, Meade is never reinforced, and Franklin is still confused as to what he's supposed to do before he finally gets online and gets his soldiers in place. Meanwhile, Reynolds is helping out with the artillery, and he was trying to make himself useful, and he really didn't know exactly what to do. So there's a lot of confusion that happens out here. Just like with many of the initial fights that happened in 1862 and some in 1863 with the Army in the East here at the Potomac. And if you can imagine, you're a soldier and you're lined up shoulder to shoulder, and you're marching across this field here, and you're headed towards your destination, whatever that might be on the horizon over there. Row by row, line by line, and you're coming across this field. Now at that time, it's winter time, so it's not hot out here. It's pretty cold. It's about 50-something degrees when they kick off the fight, and the weather's been kind of wet. So the soil's wet and bogged down, especially during the farming season. The rows would have been plowed up, and at that time, this place was, according to some Union soldiers, looked like a land of desolation, because the crops had been plundered and the fields had been destroyed by all the fighting in and around the towns here in Fredericksburg. So right now, where I'm standing on the field at the slaughter pen farm, I would have been in between General Meade and Gibbon's lines. Gibbon would have been to my right, or this direction over here, and Meade would have been in this direction over here. Two lines marching forward into the direction just in front of me over here. And also, coming from that direction, Major Pelham had his guns at the top of the hill. And as the soldiers were marching from here, he was wreaking havoc on the lines by firing down here with his guns. General Lee would take notice of that and said that it's so good to see such bravery from someone so young. Now, something very neat that's happening right now is you can actually hear the train in the background as it's going down the tracks. The same exact tracks that, well, not the exact tracks, but the same line that would have been here years ago. And out there is where that monument is that they call the Meade Monument, that marks the forward advanced position. And it was actually placed there initially for the train passengers who were passing by, to let them know that they were passing through the famous Battle of Fredericksburg. So somewhere out here in the fields in front of me, General George Gordon Meade would have been on his horse, galloping around and looking for the opportunity to attack, to push his men through. Now already, Jackson and McGilton were out here, and they had their lines pushing up towards the railroad tracks just directly in front of me. And then Sinclair was out here too. So Pennsylvania was very well represented in these fields. 10th, the 12th, the 5th, 13th, 11th, the 7th, 3rd, 4th, 8th, and 142nd, and then the 9th Pennsylvania Reserves. 114th is out here somewhere too. But in this field, George Gordon Meade finds his opportunity. He finds the area where Craig is for the Confederate side, and they were able to crush that section and push it back even further. And this is over where Early would have been, off near Prospect Hill. That is a short-lived victory, however, when A.P. Hill, Early, and General Jackson start talking about what to do, and they get soldiers plugged into place and fight back towards George Gordon Meade's advance and essentially take the ground back that was hard fought and won. Here at this ridge at the slaughter pen farm where I'm located now, there was a lone tree standing in the middle of this ridge. The Confederate artillerists on Prospect Hill were looking down at this location, and they started using that tree as a range finder for their artillery pieces. It was called the kill range. They started aiming and firing towards this direction to hit that tree. When they finally honed in this area, they knew approximately what they had to do to change the ranges of those artillery pieces to fire upon the troops down here. George Gordon Meade galloped. In the location that I'm standing right now, General Gibbon's men would have been placed, and Taylor's men would have been here. Directly behind me is the Bowling Green Road. Off to this direction, which is my left, is where General George Gordon Meade is with his men, going in the direction in front of me towards the Confederates, towards Prospect Hill and the railroad tracks. Taylor's men are here, and Taylor sees that Meade surges forward, and he decides he needs to get into the fight and help. So he pushes his men forward into that fight. Some of his men described that the fight here, going forward, was deadly and dangerous, and primarily because the Confederates were on a high ground and they were going down into a low slope or a flat plain in front of that high ground. I want to pause here to talk about a man that earned the Medal of Honor here on this field. Private George Maynard of the 13th Massachusetts was here on this field, and he was fighting, going in that direction. He ends up retreating back to that road behind me here at Bowling Green Road, and he realizes that one of his friends, Charles Armstrong, was missing, and he was going to go find him. So without any care for his own safety, he comes back across this long field of fire. He finds his friend out here grievously wounded. He helps him up, and he helps get him back to safety out here behind the artillery pieces on Bowling Green Road. And because of that, he's one of 5 men that's awarded the Medal of Honor for the fight that took place here at the slaughter pen farm in 1862. So in the position I'm in right now, you would have seen Taylor's men directly in front of me. you would have seen Lyle's men from Gibbon's Corps or Gibbon's division pouring into this field as well. They were in support of Taylor. They get to the position just in front of me before the rise that's right in front of me, and the North Carolinians pour a deadly fire into them, and it causes everybody to pause. It causes them all to stop. Well, throughout the battle, the biggest target on the field was the colors. And the colors are the regimental flags and the American standard, or the American flag. So the men are out front marking the position of their units with these flags. If you take down that flag, you can cause confusion throughout. Plus, it made an easy target for a sharpshooter. When those flags went down, Sergeant Philip Petty, Private Martin Schubert, and Private Joseph Keene all pitched in to pick up those flags and keep the advance going towards the North Carolinians. And for their efforts and their bravery for doing that, they all three earned the Medal of Honor here on this field, somewhere in the vicinity of where I'm standing right now. General John Gibbons, sensing that there was victory at hand, put his last reserve in, Adrian Roots. Adrian Roots' men got to this position at the railroad tracks directly behind me and met the North Carolinians with fierce fighting. There was hand-to-hand combat that happened, and eventually the North Carolinians ran out of ammunition and the ability to fight, and they had to fall back. And here in a minute, the train's about to ride by, so I'll have to pause while it goes on by. You don't get any cooler than that. My phone's nearly dead too. All right, my friends with the train have finally passed. So, if you can imagine, the New Yorkers are out here fighting now. They're in the fight right behind me here. They're going across the tracks. They're pushing real hard into the North Carolinians. North Carolinians are now clubbing their muskets. They're raising them in the air, and they are beating people over the head and trying to fight as hard as they can. When it becomes apparent that they can't fight anymore, they fall back. Gibbon's men, however, just like George Gordon Meade in the opposite direction over this way, have a short-lived victory. So they can't continue the fight. They fall back, they're unsupported, there's not enough to push through, and this position turns out to be a very strong position for the Confederate Army. So from the position behind me here, Gibbon's men had to create another counterattack, and I don't know if you can tell by looking at this flat row, but it goes up and then down and into where the tracks are over there, the railroad tracks, into where the woods are, and just beyond that's another set of woods. Gibbon's men counterattacked multiple times from this position up here on the ridge. But eventually, Gibbons had to give the order to fall back to the line, which was just in front of me at the road, the Bowling Green Road. After giving the order, there were some audacious Georgians out here that decided that they were going to try to attack and go on the offensive. They get to right about where I'm at right now, and then they are hit with a reserve corps that comes up just as Gibbons' man comes off the field. David Birney is now in the attack. The most important thing to remember about the fight here south of Fredericksburg is that this was the North's greatest chance at victory at Fredericksburg, but it turned into a massive failure. Between 4,000 and 5,000 men from either side was lost in the fight here south of Fredericksburg. 5,000 Union soldiers roughly, and about 4,000 plus Confederate soldiers. All of them dead or wounded around these fields here in the Slaughter Pen Farm and Prospect Hill area. So it's a great thing that this farm was saved and that this field was saved. We'll continue pushing on and ended up here pretty soon for the Slaughter Pen Farm. It's been fun bringing it to you out here in the heat at Fredericksburg, Virginia. Well, that concludes the videos from the slaughter pen farm. I hope you enjoyed it. I tried to break it down as best as I could from over in this location. Again, now that I'm facing in the direction of the soldiers who are actually marching, they're marching in that direction. Gibbons is over here with his entire corps, his entire unit through this direction. You have Taylor off over here. You have George Gordon Meade right over here. They are marching all the way off in that direction over there. And Taylor, Lyle are over in this direction marching towards the railroad tracks back that way. And behind me, running all the way the length of where I'm at, is the railroad tracks. Thanks for checking out the video about the slaughter pen farm. Thanks to American Battlefield Trust for saving this location so that everybody can enjoy it and learn from it. Till next time, this is History with Waffles.